All right, moving on. This is actually Unit 2 now. We're on Lesson 9. This stuff won't be on your Unit 1 test, but this is review of slope of a line, which will help us with doing parallel, perpendicular, other geometry topics. So slope, you probably remember, rise over run. Okay, or the formula, it's the rise, which is the change in your y's. How much did your y's change? Over the run, which is how much did your x's change? x2 minus x1. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We'll do two examples, one by graphing. So number one, by graphing. Say A is at -2, 5, and B is at 4, 3. What's the slope of line AB? Okay. Graph her out. Okay, graph it carefully so that we can count. We want to go rise and run. So I'm going to do down and then over, or up and over. In this case, it's down and over to get from A to B. Okay, so down and over. Pay attention to the sign. Since it's down 2, I'm going to say -2. It's over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a +6, so down 2 over 6. So slope down 2 over 6, -2 over 6. Make sure you do reduce it. -1/3. Okay. That would be by graphing the slope of this line, finding the slope here, -1/3. Number 2, we're going to do it using the formula there. So what if you had some bigger numbers maybe to deal with? So using slope formula, say A is maybe some bigger numbers where you wouldn't want to graph it out, right? If it's this big of numbers. And B, maybe -26, 4. Okay. Change in y's over change in x's. Okay, so y's, we got 4 minus 10. And x's, I got -26 for x2. Minus, it's always minus, and then x1 is the -30. So pay attention to the signs there. So 4 minus 10, -6. -26, okay, well, we're talking minus a negative, which is plus, so -26 plus 30 is 4. So -6 over 4, reduce that. Okay, so pretty easy. Just the other question on your homework says something like this: how do you interpret slope? Okay, so there's 2 ways to interpret this. I'm just going to tell you, then you can get these on your homework. You could say this means down 1, down blank, and over 3, down over blank. Okay, so down 1 over 3. That's the normal way people would interpret that. Could also, this is the other way to interpret it. This is how you could write it. Every time you go over 1, okay? Every time you go over 1, what happens? Okay, so every time you go over 1, you're just going to write this out. Go down 1/3. Okay, that's the other way to interpret that. Every time I go over 1, I go -1/3 or down 1/3. Look at here. Every time I go over 1, you actually only go down 1/3. Over 1, down 1/3. Kept doing that over and over, you would eventually go, you know, down 2 and over 6. But it does ask you to write out those 2 ways. I'll do the same thing here. Most people normally think this means down 3 over 2, right? Just fill in those blanks. Since it's negative slope, we went down 3 and over 2. You could also say this. This is kind of a different way. Every time, I'm just going to write what I wrote up here, you go over 1. Blank. Okay, what happens? Well, we do this. go down -3/2. Or you could say, you could say go down 3/2. You don't really need a negative there. You go down 3/2, or you could say go down 1.5. Okay, so just fill in that blank to answer those last two questions on your homework. I just want to make sure you get that idea that there are two ways to interpret that slope. Okay.